fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Last week's bird play video got a lot of traction over at the Fisherman Magazine's Facebook page, and no, I was not sick. I was not hawking loogies in the lineup. I was joking, playing possum, if you will, hoping to influence my boss into thinking that if I was away for a couple of days, I wasn't fishing, I was actually sick. Of course, his response was, "Can't wait to see the doctor's note. Oh, and I'd like to see the bass thumb." Can't pull the wool over that guy's eyes. Jim Hutchinson, New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman Magazine, coming to you a bit early this week for our Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and we've got a lot to talk about for that holiday weekend lineup. Of course, the old adage is elephants eat peanuts. Same for big stripers. They'll eat those big bunker moving down the beach, which they are. They'll eat the herring that are going to come in at some point. I'm not sure why they're not eating all that hickory shad that's in there. They're going to pile on the peanut bunker. And we've seen that, but also they're going to be eating those smaller sand eels. The sand eels are thick in the surf along the Jersey shore. I'll tell you, if you happen to snag one, like I did the other day, it'll give you a good indication of just about how small some of those sand eels can be. It'll give you a good idea on matching the baits, which is why everybody is turning to the Avas, right? The Avas, it's almost just like a ubiquitous name at this point, but those smaller diamond jigs, as 1.5, 2 ounce models with the various tails. I mentioned green tails. There's greens, yellows, and blacks and whites. You never know what's going to work. Just a slow, steady retrieve, and that just kind of wiggles along. Really meant for vertical jigging, because when this falls on the boat, it's got that wobble on the way down, and you pull it back up and it wobbles along. But I'll tell you, the one thing to keep in mind is if this just sits down in the sand, what is this doing? It's wobbling around like a small sand eel getting ready to burrow in the sand. That's why one of the things I started doing, especially when it's rough and it's heavier, I've taken out one of my old hammered cod jigs as like a 3 ounce model, and then I've just woven a small tsunami sand eel imitation on the back of that one. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll pay attention to what the guys left and right of me are doing. Sometimes you're just watching a steady retrieve. They might jig every once in a while, but if they're not getting the bites, I'll go with a super slow retrieve. Like I'll just drag this one through the sand, so it's pulled through the sand, and that's just wobbling up and down like that. So basically what you're doing is you're casting out and just drag it through the sand, reel back down, drag it through the sand. Sometimes you'll find that works, even if you're rigging some of these smaller A007s, for example, the Avas, with a small sand eel on the back. But occasionally, that's going to do well. As a matter of fact, the mighty E-Rock, a 700 level buddy of mine, texted me from Island Beach on Saturday. I had a bunch of little fish to the north in Normandy Beach. Lo and behold, he had a 46-inch striper down in Island Beach State Park that he caught tins and teasers. Tins and teasers. Actually, he was using the Hoagie sand eel jig with the teaser, and that looked very much like that if you find that Hoagie sand eel. I do a lot of rigging with these so that I've got, when those sand eel matches, the Avas and the green tails and the white tails and everything like that. Elephants and peanuts, right? Bunker. They're moving in along the beach. Swim shads, poppers, metal lips. Of course, the guys throwing SP minnows, the blurple swarters after dark, the mag darters, and the hydro minnows. And those bunker along the beach that you see just outside casting range may or may not have stripers inside of them. They may also have the spiny dogfish, quite a few of those, hoping the water temperature was going to cool off to move those doggies to the east. But again, if you find those bunker schools, you want to have those bunker matches in there as well. But we are seeing a heavy volume of sand eels in tight along the Jersey shore. So just kind of going through a casual list of some of the things that I've got in my bag at this time for that reason. You've got those molded sand eel imitations from Tsunami, a slightly bigger one, easier to cast and maintain, line connection when you're in the surf, but it seems like they're on those smaller ones. So if you scale down to maybe your 8 to 9 foot outfit, throw the smaller ones. I've been using a 9.6 outfit with heavier line, so it's nicer with the heavier jigs. Also, of course, all these other great imitations, S&S Game Over Series jigs with those little, that little keel on the bottom, very reminiscent of the Charlie Graves tins from out in Long Island. Again, swimming slow along the top. S&S also has their slim fish imitations, right? And the Pro Series with that, again, with that tail that sticks up. I found this one. Anybody know this one? My friend Petey over at Charlie's found this one. I have got to keep this quiet, but Jay Furtas another banana style look. Anybody know where the J Fertiline came from? If you recognize that one, let me know. But all of those various sandy eel imitations are working. The needlefish, the super strike, beautiful looking little sand eel imitation when those fish are in tight. And of course, don't forget about the deadly dicks as well. Those deadly dicks are something, they're killer in late summer when you're throwing and speed retrieve for those false albacore. But what I'll do is I'll take off those smaller trebles at the end, go with a different style hook in the back. So when the stripers are on thin baits, a lot of times those deadly dicks and those tsunami slim waves are also a good imitation in the wash. As a matter of fact, smaller lures can produce those big results sometimes. Brian Stone let me know he was out at Island Beach on Friday. Deadly dick within 20 yards of the beach. Said it hit like a freight train, way bigger than all the other fish that he was catching that morning. 45 inches in length. Brian said, good sign for those folks to the south. Copy that. In fact, we got some word that maybe some fish slid across the inlet onto LBI beaches last week to greet the third and final segment in the 66th annual Long Beach Island Surf Fishing Classic. There are 3 weeks left in that tournament, and some good catch and release action on some bigger fish, especially at night on bunker chunks. We're getting some good reports from the south end of the island. I'm not surprised we're not getting reports from the north end of the island because most of those guys are pretty tight-lipped. But we did have a solid slot for Steve Roderick, just shy of 38 inches, weighed in over the weekend. That fish was a hefty 22.92 pounds. So if you think about some of those slot fish that we're able to keep, that 28 to just under 38, some of those are pretty hefty fish. If you're looking for a Thanksgiving bit of striper for this weekend, that fish took a chunk from Jingles Bait and Tackle, and it took over the top slot in that 66th annual LBI Surf Fishing Classic. And again, that tournament runs through December 13th, so there's still plenty of time to sign up and plenty of prizes on a daily basis. Contest-wise, don't forget what we talked about last week in Normandy Beach. Charlie's Bait and Tackle has their Surf Turkey this weekend. Hopefully you've already entered into that. That's going all the way through Saturday, and that's going in conjunction with the Berkeley Striper Club's Ponytail Mike Memorial. And both of those are catch and release striper tournaments. So again, those beaches in central Jersey, throughout Ocean County, both northern, central, and southern Ocean County should be pretty busy this weekend with everybody competing for stripers over the Thanksgiving holiday. There are still fish to the north, of course, in Monmouth County as well. Again, prepare to fish with the tins, but also take those metal lips and have those poppers available, especially on calmer days and dirty water days when maybe the stripers aren't visually identifying stripers underwater. But if you can get a surface explosion, that's always a good key as well. Jose Lopez told me, he let me know he's been following our weekly reports for some time now, picked up some advice last week and headed up into Monmouth County, got some fish on some of those swim shads. Doing our weekly reports, actually the weekly reports going in to the December edition of the Fisherman magazine out this week, but Phil at the Tackle Box in Hazlitt, he said this week, quote, striped bass fishing continues to be outstanding. He said anglers are enjoying very good fishing in the bay and outside, trolling mojos and spoons along with live lining bunker. There are plenty of bunker around as well. Folks outside fishing along the front beaches, figure from Seaside down to Long Branch, they're trolling umbrella rigs rigged with tubes and sand eel imitations, also fishing those avas and other types of eels, eel imitations or jigs out front. Again, a lot of fish on sand eels right now, as much as those bunker are around and other swimming varieties. And again, I still can't believe that with all those hickory shad, there aren't some better numbers of fish. We did get a report of a 55-pound striper caught on a Maja spoon this week as well. So folks are still trolling along the inside of the line with some of those spoons looking for those personal best. Found out from the Huber boys, they fished out of Barnegat Light over the weekend, found fish were all over on wire. The Hubers were fishing 8-ounce drail on a homemade tsunami sand eel umbrella rig with a savage eel stinger, doubles and triples repeatedly, according to Dennis, probably landing 20 fish or more. And what Dennis said is, quote, you have to get deep, and if you're not hitting the bottom, they would not bite. Keep that in mind if you're out there on the troll and getting down. Again, those sand eels a lot of times are going to be escaping, trying to burrow into the sand. So if you've got some sand eels out there, the stripers are going to be looking down where the sand eels are, and that's down deep. Bucky D'Agostino also let me know he's found it more effective trolling on 50-pound braid. Apparently a buddy of his was next to him. They had the Niners out, but his buddy had the mono. With a 50-pound braid with 10 to 12-ounce sinkers, that did the trick for Bucky, getting them down deep. He reported 30 bass in 3 trips, trolling at about 2.8 to 3.2 knots offshore. So keep that in mind if you're out there looking for a Thanksgiving striper this weekend. It was the Niners that did it for the crew of Danger Zone over the weekend, weighing a 2-fish total weight of 24 pounds, 12 ounces in the Brigantine Elks Classic, according to Andy at Riptide Bait and Tackle. So it's good to see some stripers in that stretch. In fact, farther down into Atlantic and Cape May County, the folks at Sea Isle Bait and Tackle said stripers in the bay and the ocean, as well as the Tautog in both bay and ocean. But Sea Isle, the folks there said, quote, the answer is yes, the fish are biting, and yes, the fish are here. One of the things doing the reports this week for the December edition of the Fisherman magazine, you can find those reports on a regular basis at thefisherman.com, but there were plenty of fish in the back bays, especially in Atlantic and Cape May County, so those fish are going to continue to move in and out, plenty of bait in the back, but keep an eye out for those fish. Some folks working under the bulkheads and the bridges at night are getting it done as well. Have also heard reports of some big stripers down in southern New Jersey out along the line, the 3-mile line. Of course, don't forget you can't target striped bass at all outside of 3 miles, but you can on the line and inside. We mentioned last week that the Cape May rips were on fire, but the folks at Hands 2 Bait and Tackle reported this week for our reports at thefisherman.com. They said, quote, after last week's initial report of stripers starting to show up in the rips, it was a big letdown for those fishing the same area this week. Although the folks there said the only fish reported came from the Delaware Bay and Cape May Point jetties, though most of the fish were small, with only the occasional keeper on clam and bunker chunks, though Jesse Shaw did have a nice 30-incher in the Cape May County suds earlier this week. Hands 2 said tog fishing, on the other hand, was exceptional on both the Wildwood and Cape May County jetties. Still waiting to get some more information from that striper tag that we've been talking about for several weeks. We're going to have the full write-up in the February edition. I could tell you that the early reports seeing that striper did come just about in a straight line from Montauk across, someplace around that Delaware Bay entrance between Cape May and Delaware. So I'm sure that mojo bite that we've experienced in the last couple of winters, that should carry over for us in South Jersey and Delaware well into 2021. The few reds and speckled trout popping up here and there, still mostly a tight-lipped group of guys down in Cape May County. Though over on the Delaware Bay shore, the crew at Lewis Harbor Marina said Tom Martone was tog fishing at the outer wall when this 26 3/4 inch red drum ate a green crab. Good to see that. I mentioned the speckled trout. Cape May County Sharpies waiting for the showing of speckled trout. Well, we got 3-year-old Axel Miller. 3-year-old Axel here hit pay dirt along the central Jersey grounds with a 23-inch, 5.3-pound speckled trout. Check that in with the folks from Grumpy's. So maybe there are more speckled trout in along the Jersey shore at this point. If they're in Ocean County, you would expect they're going to be in Atlantic and Cape May County at this point as well. Mentioned green crabs before. Captain Bill's had their annual Blackfish tournament this past weekend. It was based on a 6-fish bag limit. First place went to No More's with 58 pounds worth of tog offshore. Second place Down to Fish with 40 pounds, and third place LTB 38.4. They had their largest tog though was 12.1. That is pretty nice fish. The good folks at Captain Bill's donated a portion of those proceeds to help with the artificial reef program here in New Jersey. Always nice to give back. On that reef front, we got an update from the Division of Fish and Wildlife this week. They've expanded New Jersey's reef network through a deployment of 6,000 tons of concrete out there at the Manasquan Inlet Reef site. This new feature will be called the Mar Terminals Reef in recognition of the donated material from Mar Terminals. This is 151 concrete forms that were slated for demolition and disposal. Well, that habitat should do better, should do well in the future in terms of attracting more of those tog and maybe sea bass in tight on the Manasquan Inlet Reef. With Thanksgiving week, we can officially start thinking about holiday season again. Christmas and Hanukkah coming up for gift givers. I have a few gift ideas to recommend to you. But first, let's get a Sweetwater update from George, our Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, again this week I was out on the hunt again for those muskie. And you know what? I still can't get my hands around one. But we did manage to get a couple fish anyway. Good friend Josh Taylor and I were out soaking some large live baits for those muskies, but managed to get into a couple of those pesky little chain pickerel that always tend to steal your bait. Fortunately, they were some pretty good size, so it was a little bit of fun for the day. Josh Taylor also managed to get into a really nice little bass, stole one of the large live baits. And I'll tell you what, we were really surprised to find them still hanging on the weed lines in relatively shallow water, about 15 feet. So the bass are still pretty active, guys, if you want to get out and get on them. Another guy that was being really successful is I checked in with Jen Wong. Jen was out doing some trout fishing with a Berkeley trout worm, and he was rigging that underneath a weighted cigar float. And he said he was working that pretty aggressively, giving those that worm some action, and he got in some really nice trout. So great work there, Jen, and thanks for that tip. Also, Eric Goodstall, local guy over here in the Poconos, getting into those trout and getting on some hand-tied hair jigs. So some of those little tiny hair jigs out in these lakes and the creeks are doing real productive for some of these fish as well. Now, I also had a check-in from Stan Shawn out there in the Susquehanna. Him and his wife were out getting some nice catfish. These are channel cats, not flatheads. But he said this is a great time of year to go soak those chicken livers in those deep holes there in the Susquehanna or any of these places that got catfish. People don't realize that the colder weather is still a great time to get on cats. Now, finally, I got to tell you, going back to our good friend Josh Taylor, he was out here jigging a vertical spoon in 40 feet of water, just doing some vertical jigging, and got himself into about a 30-pound carp. Can you believe it? You never know what you're going to catch, guys, so get out and get on them. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
I mentioned it before, this Sunday we just did our fishing reports to go into the December 2020 edition of the Fisherman magazine. That magazine is out this week. You subscribers will get it in the mail. You should look for it in your local newsstands, Wawa, marinas, tackle shops. Beautiful cover. Artist Savio Mizzi, who's one of the great artists I know, does a lot of fishing stuff. He's also a charter captain out in Montauk. Did that beautiful cover that you'll see on our holiday gift guide. It's what we do every year. Spotlight some of the best and brightest new pieces of equipment coming out that's available to you before the holidays. The holiday gift guide has dozens and dozens of gift ideas for the angler on your list or yourself. We'll also have an incredible subscription program going on right now if you're thinking about giving the gift of the Fisherman magazine. Just $19.95 for a one-year subscription going on through this holiday offer through the end of 2020. You can get 2 years for $38. Get one for yourself. It's for new subscribers. It's for renewing subscribers. If you don't know when your renewal is up, go visit us at thefisherman.com and renew for just $19.95. And like I said, makes a great gift for that angler on your list. Nothing like getting your membership updated with the Fisherman magazine. It is my favorite holiday of all time. Favorite of the year. It's all about bringing family and friends together, being thankful for what we have, celebrating that. It's also about the feast, family, fishing, and of course a little bit of football as well. I'm thankful every year at this time. I'm thankful for my family for putting up with my garbage. I'm also thankful for you guys for checking in with us on a regular basis. I can't do this without getting some of those photos and reports from folks who watch this video each week. So you can always email me at jhutchinson@thefisherman.com. Thanks for sharing those photos and making this sometimes productive endeavor well worth the effort, right? We've got some good news in New Jersey on the coastal kayak clash front as New Jersey takes the lead again. I'll let Toby Lipinski, our New England editor, break down that news for you, but I'm going to gather up all my jigs, put them in my plug bag, and go enjoy my sick days. Catch them up. We'll see you again next week right here at thefisherman.com.
As I noted last week, we are fast approaching the end of the inaugural Coastal Kayak Clash Fishing Tournament. And, as with last week, all of the recent entries have been in the Blackfish division. And this week's entries shook things up quite a bit on the overall leaderboard, as you're going to see in just a moment. First up, New England angler Scott Schneider stayed on his hot streak, besting his top Tautog entry of a week ago with a 25¼ inch fish, further securing his top spot in the category and currently holding down the Fish of the Month entry for Blackfish with just over a week to go. From there we received a handful of other Blackfish entries, including a solid 22-inch Blackfish entered by New Jersey angler Bob Wagner. Now, what makes this interesting is this moved Bob into 3rd place in the Blackfish division, narrowly edging out New England's Chris Neves with his 21½-inch fish. And this is where it really starts to shake things up. Now, this 3rd place Tautog gives Bob a total overall score of 10 points. And it dropped Chris Neves down to 10 points as Bob got his 1 point for the 3rd place and Chris lost his 1 point for getting dropped out of the top 3. So they put him in a virtual tie overall for the Grand Prize Old Town Sportsman Series Autopilot 136. However, the first tiebreaker is determined by the total length of the angler's fish currently on the leaderboard, which puts Bob Wagner in the first place for now. Now, the tournament ends on November 30th, and with the recent drama unfolding, there is plenty of time still for another shakeup. But until then, be sure to visit thefisherman.com for complete details.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.